Welcome in, Rahubat Collective. We are going to be talking about titles and how titles can relate to spiritual trauma. Now, I know I said in the last video that we were going to worry about how to leave cults in different collectives and things of that nature, but I felt like talking about this beforehand, um, just because it came to me so quickly. And when the divine put it on me, I immediately just like was down writing this whole script. So we're going to jump into it. So, titles and labels within the spiritual community can cause a lot of issues, not only external issues, but internal ones as well. A lot of times, you are called something which then creates a feeling of importance. Though this can be a boost that you need, it can also drag you down and make you feel like you aren't living up to a standard. Um, this is why it's like, when you, now I know this would be really relatable. It's like you receive a compliment and you're like, I don't really know what I did to receive this compliment because I haven't really done a lot, or you feel like you're not doing enough, like you undershot yourself, right? That happens because of a title, because of something either within inside of you that you aren't able to mend, or something external like your output of what you're doing not feeling like you're doing all that you can. And this is a huge thing that happens within the spiritual community, and with a lot of people getting confused and not knowing who they are and all these things. And this is, and I'm going to always talk about it because this is an issue that needs to be fully addressed when it comes to the tarot scene. And I've gotten so much confirmation from people saying like, yeah, I actually did need to hear this. Thank you for telling me about this. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for grounding me. We get so caught up in the spiritual realm of like, oh, you're protected, and the divine loves you, and you're this and you're that, and past life readings and pick a card readings, and all everything of that nature, right? It's so important not to let that get to your head, because the second that it does, your ego eats that up. It's looking for something to latch onto, right? And you got to be careful of that, especially when you are still working with healing that egoic need of self pleasure, of gratitude coming from an external standpoint, or even coming from an internal standpoint that you know that you physically, mentally, emotionally, and or spiritually can live up to at the point of time of receiving those titles, right? And this is why it's so important to really use your discernment and to get that intuition up. um Now, this is something that a lot of people, again, they don't like to hear because they're still within the stages of, oh, but this is really what I needed to hear. And it's perfectly fine if you need to hear it, but just understand that whenever you are away from that mindset, when you are fully away from indulging in that type of energy where it's always giving you highlights and always good news, it can be very detrimental. The world is not always good, and the world is definitely not black and white either, child. Okay, we have all sorts of colors. It's a spectrum here. So even though you love, so yeah, and I'll point this out as well, even though it's very important, and I know this has nothing to do with titles of spiritual trauma, I need to talk about it though. That's what's coming up. Anyway, I know it's very important to hear all the good things because we as people, and even as just in general, we tend to be surrounded by a lot of negativity or things not working out. So then we need to subconsciously train ourselves to expect the best. So it's very good to do that within this realm, right? But then you become so attached to things working out and being good for you that when the smallest thing happens that shows that it's not working for you, your whole life crumbles, right? So just being aware of that. But a lot of titles and labels in the spiritual community are not as rare as you think, but they spread with either misinformation or a lack of information that gives them a reason for the ego to grab onto it. A lot of these terms are also made up and cause a lot of confusion and diversity. This is the same tactic that's used in the divide and conquer mentality in ruling system. um I'm gonna just be real with you because we need to hear it and talk about it. Even though this is a spiritual place, guess what? Life is a spiritual experience. So just because you hear the word spiritual, do now you have to ask yourself this question, right? Just when you hear the word spiritual, do you think everything's protected? When you hear the word spiritual, do you think that it's all with God? Or when you hear spiritual, do you realize and digest it as everything's a spirit. So just because something's spiritual doesn't mean it's actually good. You really have to sit down and talk to yourself about stuff of that nature, because when it comes down to it, you hear the word spiritual, right? And though yes, everyone's getting along, and if you're not on someone's path, don't bother them, they don't bother you type energy, right? But it's one of those things where people have to, it's the same thing with like the religious thing where, oh, you're this and I don't like that. It's like, oh, you're in the hoodoo, you're in the African spirituality. Well, where I come from, I hear that it's evil and bad, but that's just because the people you're around within that community, within your own spiritual practices, the people that do it then are the ones majorly doing it bad and giving off a bad image in that name, in that spiritual practice, right? It's not about whose spiritual practice is the most pure. It's about what that person's intent with it is. Now that even spreads down to even saying, you're either praising something that is of God or something that is of devil, and then that takes you down your own path as well. Those are the two sides of the spectrum that we work with everything else in between being everything in between. All right. So just digesting that, overstanding that as well, because what happens is when the devil gets into the spiritual communities, which is, the devil can really make you, the devil's a liar, right? Hearing something repetitive can really be related to that type of energy because it's pushed into you, it's driving into you. Either it's fear based or it's told to you so much that you end up believing it and falling under this facade. This is why so many people um end up within the tarot scene or just the spiritual scene and all together end up with these traumas because what they've been doing is intaking so much energy from so many peoples in so many places and things and ideals and ideologies and all these things that now they have this very confused spirit inside of them that doesn't know which way to go because they've only researched bits and pieces of everything, jack of all trades, master of none, right? And then that gives the devil full permission to come in and go like, yo, what's up? I'm going to take you down this path to make your whole life even crazier because you don't know where you actually want to go, right? And this is why it's so important to pay attention to these things. um and as always, I'm going to preface this again in every video. I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. I'm not saying anything is good or bad. I'm just bringing things to the table so that you can actually start thinking for yourself and really free yourself from the biggest prison, which is your mind. Now, some of these labels and titles that we're going to be talking about today include Earth Angel, Fallen Angel, Karmic, Narcissist, Prophet, Healer, and Energy Reader. Those are the few that we're going to talk about. There's a lot more. We don't have all day to talk about all of them, but these are the ones that I feel are very, very important key points to talk about because these are the ones that's thrown around the most. Being someone within the scene who has not only done readings, not only picked up this energy, but has also took a step back to see what's really going on with it, but as well as observed other people copy paste these same terms, I want to bring some light to it, which I have in the past multiple times, but now it's time to really, really talk about it. Now it's time to really get deep within what these terms mean and really how they're contorting and distorting what you're really trying to say or mean. All right. So, if you were to ask someone as well, like if you were to ask someone who chooses these titles, and I don't mean someone who like calls these people these titles. I'm talking about someone who chooses to go like, oh yeah, I'm a healer, I'm an earth angel, whatever. Ask someone who means with with who with those. My gosh, I can't speak. It was very Karachi all over again. But anyway, if you ask someone who chooses these titles, what they think they mean, they wouldn't have an exact answer or know really what they're talking about. Since these titles are accepted and just very vague in general, people go for how they sound rather than the actual purpose of them. Okay. Now, the first one we're going to start off with is Earth Angel, and that ties in with Fallen Angel pretty closely. All right. So let's start with Earth Angel. Um, because there's so many people that use that. A lot of people do. All right, and the sound of it's good. It's a very good tone to hear. Oh my gosh, you're an Earth Angel. Oh my goodness, like it's a good thing to hear, of course, right? But let's tell the truth about what that means. Okay, and the truth is we are all fallen angels. So first we have to digest that before you can even understand what an Earth Angel is. Understand that you are a fallen angel first. All right, because you fell onto earth just as Lucifer did. Lucifer doesn't rule hell, he fell to earth. We are on Earth. We fell to Earth just as Lucifer did. Lucifer is known as a falling angel. We are also known as falling angels. Okay, we fell from grace. That's why we're here. The term earth angel simply means an angel on earth, which is again a fallen angel. They just took it and sweetened it up. They put some rose-colored glasses on it to make it seem a little bit nicer for those who just aren't ready to accept the truth. But for ones over here who are looking for the actual truth of it, I'll be the one to tell you. And you can look up all sorts of stuff. You can look up a video literally called let me look up the actual title of it real quick for you. Okay. You can look up the video, Dr. Malachi Z. York, What Are Fallen Angels, to get more of that, as well as just going to the Bible where it talks about fallen angels, looking at the story where Lucifer fell from the heavens to earth and that whole war. And that is also the Book of Wars. I have that written down in my notes somewhere, actually. So let me talk about that a little bit. We're not going to go too deep into it, but the Book of Wars, which is talked about in Numbers 21:14, as well as Joshua 10:13. They both talk about the Book of Wars, which is one of the books that has one of the many books that's removed from the Bible that hasn't been shown just yet. If you know, you know. If you don't, go to those places and read what it says. It literally says one of the books in there. I don't have the exact quote written down, but y'all can do that research because we're here to not only listen, but to go out and search as well. Okay? But you fell from grace, which is why you're on earth, and you are here to become whole with the Father who art in heaven. And people don't usually like to hear that they are a fallen angel, just because of a very rational way of thinking, because of them thinking, oh, that's bad. If I'm a fallen angel, does that mean I'm bad? Well, yes. Welcome to the reality of the situation. You wouldn't have fell from grace if you weren't bad, if you didn't disobey God at some point. Now, does that mean that you're damned to earth forever? No. Does that mean everyone's a fallen angel? No. Some people genuinely reincarnated to come back here to help those reach higher vibrations. And those people are the ones that you call the teachers and or healers of the realm. All right. Now, this is why we're going to break down the term of healer as well with this, because a lot of people um reincarnation is a funny thing to talk about with this subject. We'll break it down because I'm being called to. So with reincarnation, everyone reincarnates, obviously, but some people reincarnate by coming down here on free will, of saying, I'm gonna come down here and help people wake up before the Elohims come back down, before the Anunnaki come back down, and all these things start happening, right? Which, I mean, these events have been happening on for a while. They're just going to get more and more severe. So keeping an eye out and really reading up on the prophecies to know about this, which is another reason why we have prophecies up in here. Regardless, there's nothing bad about the truth. But if the truth of a fallen angel upsets you, then you need to do your job to connect to the Father again. The only reason it upsets you is because there's something inside of you saying, yeah, it's true. And there's something in you that's like, yo, we need to do certain things to really help ourselves with this, all right? You have to come with terms with that truth. um but you don't have to, really. You can say that, but a lie is always going to be a lie in all ways. But you need to come to some form of acceptance with it, so you aren't held back or bound to any lower way of thinking and or lower vibration, um as well. And with that, all right, now we're going to move on to this label. It's a very interesting one to talk about because it will show a lot of these labels are going to show a lot about the maturity someone has, but I feel like this one shows a lot of the maturity that people have. And the title is karmic. All right, so let's break it down. What is karmic? Karmic consists of two words or two parts: karma and the suffix ic or ik. Ik or ic means one having the character of or nature of. All right, karma meaning the action, as in Sanskrit's origin, it just means an action. So altogether, a karmic is simply someone doing something or putting something into action. And surprisingly, everyone is a karmic because everyone is always doing something. People like to project a karmic as this person did something bad or mean, which ironically is the exact same thing that that person does when they say that about someone. You're being mean by calling someone else a name. Whether you believe it to fit them or not, whether or not you want to say it's the truth, you're still plastering a negative energy on someone out of an egoic reason of saying, oh, they deserve it. When in actuality, they don't. What they deserve is what they output. And they didn't output you calling them that word. You know what I mean? You don't need to intervene in someone else's life by labeling them, just as someone would intervene in your life and label you. Why are you trying to match the energy instead of just walking away and leaving them where they desire to lay? That's on them, not on you. Don't fight a war that you have no business fighting. And this is another thing with the whole spiritual energy. A lot of people want to call themselves warrior angels. Well, if you're going to be a warrior, that means you're going to incite violence. That means you're going to be at war. That means you're going to be fighting someone. If you don't want to be a fighter, then stop fighting. Then go somewhere else. Then release that control, that grip of needing to have something go in a certain way. Um, and the truth is about the word karmic is the conscious community usually uses that term to bully someone that it is what it is. It's they're using a word to hurt someone that hurt them, whether however it is. You can also say that a karmic is someone you learn lessons from as well, because within the laws of karma, whatever you input will be your output. You're always learning a lesson, you're always learning new ins and outs. So everything is a karmic because whatever you do is going to output, right? Which again, surprisingly, everyone is learning from someone. You can even take it a step deeper and you'll see that you're your own karmic as you always do actions that change and interfere with your own life, whether for the best or for the worst. This includes refusing to heal, refusing to really sit down and ground yourself within a chaotic moment makes you a karmic because now you're fighting yourself. You see what I mean? This term is thrown around so much as a projection when it actually starts from the internal first. What have you done to allow that person to call you to do those actions for you to then call them a karmic, right? It's a back and forth war. And until you settle down within yourself and be like, you know what, I did mess up because there was something inside of me that told me not to do this. And that same voice you hear over and over again because that is the divine, that is God, that is your angels, whatever you want to call it, telling you, hey, don't do that. We've had this voice ever since we were a child, right? Curiosity killed the cat, satisfaction brought him back. You can say that all day long, but we always have that voice in our head that says, hey, don't do that, or hey, do this, or hey, stop worrying about that. That's not for you. All these things, but we choose not to listen to it, and we fall succumb to the louder voice, which is the devil of the situation, right? But this term karmic is thrown around like a wet rag, and with the same impact and same force behind it as well. Many use it as a masking term to avoid seeing a full picture or to place a form of innocence on them to better help their clause or reasoning. Some people use the word karmic like, oh, they're karmic, so they deserve bad things to happen to them. Well, you're also now karmic because you're participating in that game. So do you deserve bad things to happen to you? Oh, like overstand that. Treat others how you want to be treated. And if you don't want to be called names or laughed at, then don't make fun of other people or laugh at other people. Simple as. Unless you're a comedian, go for it. You know what I mean? But seriously, overstand that because that's the simple law. And a lot of people in the conscious community ignore it. They'll be like, oh, karma's going to hit you. Well, yeah, karma's going to hit you as well because now you've just cursed someone by saying karma's going to hit you. Now you've tried to command a force outside of yourself to do something to someone that you believe deserves it, which is going to cause, you see the cycle, you see how it starts. This is really what's going on. So don't be so amped. Don't be so jumpy to call someone a karmic because you really have to sit back and look at yourself like, oh, I am the karmic. I am this. I am that. Because it takes one to know one. If the person healing from another's actions took less time placing a label on the actions that someone took, they would have an easier way of healing, as they wouldn't be giving that energy a reason to stay or really exist. All right. If something exists, then there has to be some form of energy or some form of force or reason inside of it, no matter if that reason is visible or invisible. Remember that a word always holds energy. And when you place it on someone or something, you are now responsible for how you use that energy and that label and how it makes you feel. internally, externally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, right? You say, "Oh, that's gross," and then you start feeling sick whenever you start talking about it. That's because you're giving that energy a definition. So now, whenever that comes up, now you're gonna feel sick by it. That's why when you get, "Oh my god, I'm scared of these things," and then whenever those things happen, that fear gets greater and greater because you've already labeled it as something that you're scared of, and instead of fighting that resistance, it now becomes this grand monster making a mountain out of a molehill, right? But it's up to you and you alone to change how you feel, how in the way that you use and see words, labels, anything. Be very super careful of that. Now, this one I've talked about a little bit before in my video called "The Only True Mental Illness." You can find it in the playlist section in my on my channel called Classes. And this term is called narcissism. Now, what is narcissism? I know people is listen. I'm gonna be honest with you. Someone's gonna say, because I've seen it before, I've seen it a million times. People will go narcissism when someone's really mean to you for no reason. No, I don't know where you got that definition from. You didn't even look it up. You don't even know what the word narcissist means. You're just throwing it around. Same thing. Um, Same thing with karmic. Now, what is a narcissist? Narcissism means the excessive interest in oneself and they're also their physical appearance. With that in mind, I need to remind you this is not the realm of duality. We're not ran in duality. We are ran in a spectrum. All of us have a bit of narcissism in us. That's why we choose ourselves over someone else, right? It's our backbone. It's the part of narcissism that's healthy. And you can also be narcissistic by overgiving because now you're putting, oh, but other people need more of it. So now you're being narcissistic to yourself. You see how that is? How else do we know if someone else is a narcissist if we don't have a bit of it in us, right? It takes one to know one. Regardless, everyone calls a narcissist, uh, everyone will call someone a narcissist without looking at their own actions and way of life. People use the term to plaster a title, which usually gives off a negative energy on people due to an incorrect definition of the word. As also as we said in the last section, every title, label, and word we use has an energy that we put into it and that we project how we feel onto another. And if not how we feel, it's how we truly think and who we truly are on someone else. I encourage you to watch the video mentioned the only true mental illness, um, as well as doing your own research on these subjects, on these names, on these titles, that so you can better fit that word to your situation. When you tell the truth, it won't bother you, but when you tell a lie, it will come up again and again to try and self correct you. This is why so many people within the collective, you hear, oh, this narcissistic energy is still around you because now you're being narcissistic to yourself by not allowing yourself to heal. By saying, I don't know how to heal, but you do know how to heal. You're just pushing that tiny voice down because you're unable to accept what's around you, right? Acceptance is the first step. Denial is the first step to acceptance, though, right? So you need to accept it. You need to accept the situation as it is. And that's hard for people. Some people just are not meant to heal from it this lifetime and they carry it on to their next life. And God bless, they heal from it then, hopefully. The ones that actually have the strength, the courage, the determination, the bravery to do so in this lifetime, I highly encourage you to do it because you'll realize how much negativity you've actually thrown around by protecting a part of you that doesn't even need protection. It just needed awareness, right? You ever, as like a teenager or a child, have something took away from you that people thought was dangerous, but you knew that you what you were doing, and then you get upset at that person, like, why they take that away from me? It's the same energy that's happening to yourself as you're taking away that ability to be like, oh, this term actually isn't scary. This person, this situation actually isn't happening the way you think it is. You're just latching onto something that projects an energy to make you feel more innocent than you really are. And you grab onto it so tightly, in fact, that you're not willing to um, move away from it. You're not willing to actually see it in a different light, which then puts you, ironically, into the narcissistic category. All right, into the category of being a karmic, and then now you have to learn from that. So overstanding that is going to really save you a lot of time and trouble. A lot of people don't like looking at it like that because it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to heal from this. You do know how you're supposed to heal from it. The fact that you have that question means that you already have the answer. You're just not willing to sit down long enough and listen to it, or you're not listening to the actual voice that's trying to help you, and you're following down the same path because it's easier for repetition to appear rather than to go down a new path. You know what I mean? This title is spread around a lot, and it's prophet. A lot of people like to call themselves a prophet. Many people like the tones of hearing they're a prophet without even knowing which one is. A prophet, by definition, is a person regarded as an inspired teacher or a proclaimer of the will of God. Now, with that being said, look up what the definition of a will is, and you will understand what it is to be a prophet. Okay? Though I'm here to teach you, again, you need to do your own work in searching and learning. So I'm going to give you clues and hints and things to look up so that you don't have to believe me. You can just look it up and check it out for yourself to know that I'm not just telling you some bullshit, that you can actually look it up and everything I'm telling you is completely true. It's just the fact that people are lazy or are so blind that they just follow other people to where they don't look up these definitions. They go, oh, this sounds good without even, it's like buying a dress that doesn't even fit you, but you bought it because it looks good, and then you try to put it on and it rips. It's like that's not for you. You know what I mean? We're here to learn. We're here to do these things. And I'm here to help you all learn as well. But I can't just sit here and talk to you because that's robotic. We're not robots. Okay? Many people will call themselves a prophet for knowing what happens in a day or two in advance, or calling something before it happens. This is actually called clairvoyance, not prophecy. Be very aware of this, okay? People like to be called the word prophet because they are unaware of the true meaning of what it is, or really what they mean to say, and others do it for a feeling of gratification. Look up the definition of clairvoyance, look up the definition of prophet. It's right there. I'm not making nothing up, okay? A lot of people are clairvoyant, very few are prophets. Okay? This is why not everyone in the Bible was a prophet, but people received visions. That means they were clairvoyant. That's a power. That's the power that we've received from the Most High Allah. All right? The feeling of gratification will be a reoccurring theme, by the way, in this series of spiritual trauma. It is with this whole series as well, as many people in the spiritual community are looking for that type of gratification because of the term black sheep and them being like, yeah, I'm a black sheep. So then that hurts you. So now you're looking for gratification to heal that black sheep wound. And you don't realize that attachment to those labels comes from an unhealed childhood wound and or abandonment wound. Or even, what is it called? Um, when you don't feel like you're able to do something. Oh my God. I forgot what that's called. Imposter syndrome. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you. Imposter syndrome. You might even have imposter syndrome that you're trying to heal, right? But many people who call themselves a prophet do so in falsehood, as they aren't coming up with anything new. Now, a prophecy is something that's foretold through time. It's something that happens. It's something that has steps behind it, right? Rather than telling the same story, but in their own way, which is not prophecy, that's storytelling. Now, a prophecy stays strong and still throughout the years with proof of evidence events happening, with a lot of evidence as well, not just one event but multiple events, right? You can look at the prophecies written in Revelations, which is the revolution, which is re-evolution, which is revolting, and all these things, something happening again, right? All those scenes that was seen in Revelations is a prophecy, but it's a prophecy that's not told completely. But if you need an example of what a prophecy is, that's a good example to look up what a prophecy is. All right. A lot of people don't understand that being a prophet just isn't having dreams of people. That's again another part of being clairvoyant. These are all things of your third eye just being open. This is really your sixth sense and whatever you want to call it, right? Being a prophet is a lot more to do with the connection with God, a direct connection, not just you receiving signs here and there. This is something that you don't really even understand yourself or understand yourself. It's something that when you do something or when you write a book or whatever, or you do something, it's whenever you have no recollection of it happening. Now, people can have no recollection when it comes to channeling, which is why prophets are so rare. But because people don't want to dissect these terms down, they just say, oh, you're a prophet. Your prophecies are coming true. Your clairvoyant visions are coming true. Your dreams that you had are coming true. Doesn't mean your prophecies coming true. This means whatever is happening is coming true because you've seen it. Prophecies are a lot different. Trust me. I know a few prophets, and they do not sound like half the people who keep saying that they are a prophet and they're not doing anything. A prophet does not sit silent. A prophet does not prophesy what happens in someone else's life. That's a fortune teller, that's a clairvoyant. A prophet tells you what's going to happen to the masses. And it's not vague like readers are, it's direct. Okay? Understand that. Another term that people love to take up is healer. Everyone thinks being a healer is a very special thing without the knowledge that everyone is a healer. Our bodies literally heal on their own, our internal systems heal on their own, Earth heals on its own. Everything is innately a healer. All right. Many people say they're healers because they make people feel good, or they're they make people feel good, they lift vibrations, those things. Those can be side effects of what it's like to be healed, but feeling good and stuff isn't always a sign of healing. Understand that a healer heals. All right. Think of what a doctor does when you're injured. All the steps are done the same for a healer does. They scan the body, they do like an x-ray. Let's say you break your arm, right? A doctor doesn't just look at you, go, yep, your arm's broke, let me put you in a cast. No, they take an x-ray. They take an x-ray of your arm. They do all sorts of things. They have a procedure, they hook you up. They put you in a cast. They then send you home with medication, with instructions to do and how to follow through. And then after a while, you go back if you need to get the stitches or the cast removed, or however, or even just for checkups after that. Right? That's what a healer does. And a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'm a healer." What are you doing that's actually healing though? Are you out there healing people, or are you healing yourself? Regardless, you are a healer, but don't cling so tightly to that title, because so many people will throw it out randomly just to make people feel good. And again, it's a good catch to get started within the spiritual journey. But then people get that spiritual ego where they're like, oh, I'm a healer and I do all these things. Well, guess what? So doesn't everyone else. So doesn't your dog. Your dog gets a scar and it heals. Your dog's a healer. Your dog makes you feel good. Does that make your dog a healer? Or does that make your dog reactive to your dopamine receptors? Right? Understand. Healers don't just do one thing and leave, there's a process. And many people who claim to be healers can't even heal their own traumas. Though that doesn't mean that they can't be a healer, it definitely makes you take a step back and reevaluate who is really a healer and who is one in training. And I'm going to say in training for like a better words, okay? Because everyone is a healer, but what are you actually here to heal, right? You're a doctor, but what are you doctoring, right? What are you stationed in? What's a doc? These words have meanings and they need to be broken down, y'all. So what are you docking? Where dock are you stationed at? What waters are you traversing? What waters are you bringing people out of and bringing them to land, right? Where are you making people stay steady? All these things. And lastly, energy reader is a very fun label. People is like, I'm an energy reader. I read energy. And people love to spread that. You know what's funny about that? Everyone reads energy. When you say you feel sick or say something doesn't feel good, you're literally reading energy. The human brain, the human experience that people have on this realm, love to try and overcomplicate things when they are really just simple. They love to do it to seem smarter, to seem like they have a grander grasp on things, when it really makes them the opposite. Not everything is complex, but the ego wants you to think that and believe that. And when I was writing that, I remember one day when I was doing readings, I bought a new deck. And when I did a reading, there was no magic that popped up. There was no evil energy that was popping up. And I remember it distinctly because this is something that really like stuck with me, and it's been something that I've been looking into heavily because it really shows the spiritual ego of things. I remember someone saying that deck sucks, it's no good. And that's so confusing because I could have used any deck and it would have given that same message because it's the energy. And this is the whole thing where people get that spiritual ego and think that, oh, you're reading for the collective, and because I am part of the collective, that means you're reading for me. No. I could be reading for someone else and not you entirely. This is the whole thing with readers. You grab onto them and you think, oh, they're reading about my energy still. If they are, then that's an issue. Why are they still picking up on your problems? Why are you still surrounded by these problems that you say that you're leaving and trying to escape? If they're picking up on your energy still, then there's something that you need to be doing. It's not a good thing to have your energy picked up by everyone. That's a bad thing. Because now it's like all these things are coming at you, and it's like, what do you actually need to do to start healing? There's so, you know what I mean? You're having such a vast energy that you're not really able to consolidate it into yourself. Always see things for how they are, not how you would rather them be. This is the spiritual ego, and it needs to be busted. Many people stay in a spiritual ego due to false teachings, incorrect thinking, the list goes on. Everything is energy, and we all read it. We read it with our five senses and even our sixth sense. We even read energy when we talk to ourselves in our head, or even when we talk to ourselves out loud. Everything gives off energy. It's a matter of if we will pay attention to it or what the energy is trying to say, right? This is why people have impulse control issues, because they know that the energy is saying that they shouldn't do it, but instead of being able to have that self control, they really are reliant and dependent on that energy and do so anyway. Remember that everything is energy and we are always reading it. There is really no such thing as an energy reader because everyone does it, even when they're unconscious, you know? They walk up, oh my god, your dog is so cute. That dog is reacting. Its energy is making your dopamine receptors go crazy because of the sense that you're picking up on. The vibration, the energy of sight. It's all there. And this is all things that you attach yourself to because of a spiritual ego that then makes you want to feel grander than you really are. And you have to ground yourself back down because you're floating off in space and you're not really seeing things for what they really are. Okay? At the end of the day, labels and titles, no matter if they're spiritual or physical, create a very weird dissonance between the truth and what the ego wants to hear. Everyone says they don't like titles, yet they choose one and run with it. You shouldn't label yourself because it puts you in a box. And this is why many people think that some people are just readers when they're much more of that. And the either the person is afraid of showing their full spectrum, which is why they're unaware of it, or they don't realize it at all. But understand this. You have more to yourself. And I remember, like, even for me, and I love using myself as an example. All right. Because here's the thing. What's a better example to use rather than myself? Someone that's gone through these things, someone that's actually able to help people go through those things. I remember I used to be called, you're just a reader all the time. I'm a lot more than a reader. I'm an alchemist. I'm a healer. I, I'm in the witchcraft. I do all sorts of stuff. I'm a linguistic. I love looking up languages. I'm all over the place. I'm more than something. But people get so upset and egotistical and mad because they can't box you down in one place, which is why they say, "Oh, you're this," so they can try and pinpoint you. But ironically, they can't, and they shouldn't be able to either. If you can pinpoint someone down to doing one thing and one thing alone, they're not expanding. That or they're not showing their true colors, their full spectrum to you. That doesn't mean it's a good or bad thing. Some people like a private life, some people don't like showing all that stuff. But it's also just saying that you're assuming who they are based off of incorrect or incomplete, also known as missing data that you need because you're intellectualizing it. You're becoming an intellect. You're taking that information in and then telling it, intellect. You're telling it out. You're internalizing it and then you're pushing it back out. Okay, so understand that. But all in all, be very careful of titles. Be very careful of uh, labels that you place on yourself. And again, be very careful of those who are titled. And I'm going to talk about it because it need to be talked about. When people start titling, "Oh my God, you're a crazy, powerful Earth Angel," okay, you and how many other people? Why are you falling for that trap? It's the same thing as advertisement. It's something to catch your eye. They're selling you something. They're trying to sell you something. That's why a lot of my titles don't have like, "Oh, you're this and you're that," because I don't need to tell you what you are. You'll pick up the energy and you'll either know what that title is or you won't. Regardless, you don't need a title. You just need to know what you're capable of doing and moving on from that. To be stuck to a title is to be stuck to an energy, and you don't want to be stuck in one energy. In a boundless world, why would you dare put yourself in a box that you spent so long of your life trying to leave due to this trauma putting you in a box, right? And don't let and this is another reason why you don't need label trauma. We talked about it a little bit, but don't let titles and traumas put you in this box to make you feel like, oh, I'm not living up to my standard, or I'm not doing this or that. Well, then remove that label from yourself. That's not going to degrade you. That's not going to say that you're worse or bad at something. That's just saying that that title is actually unhealthy for you, and you really actually don't need it. It's your ego that feels like you need it because it felt very needed and very important with that title. But this is episode 2 of the Spiritual Trauma series. Thank you all so much for the support. The likes, comment, share, subscribe, donations, whether energetic or financial. I appreciate them all. All the links are in the description. The Spirit Audio link, the link to my services, the Malachi Z books, as well as the like tablets are all down there. I highly encourage y'all to look at those things. It's literally free. You don't have to do anything. Just studying up on it, reading it, doing whatever you need to do with it. All the answers that you really have for life are in those things. And people like to not look at them. You know, some people think it's following someone. It's not. You're asking a question and it has an answer. And if you're not willing to accept it for what it is, that's on you. The truth never denies the seeker. It's always the seeker that denies the truth. But I love you all so much. To the moon and back tenfold and forever. And I will see y'all later.